Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Na Vyabhicharanti. Oh, excuse me, no, N. Vyabhicharati Taveksha Yaya Hyabhihito Bhagavato Dharma Stiram Chara Sattva Karambeshu Apritag Dhiyo Yam Upasate Tvarya Navya Vicharati Taveksha Yaya Yabhihito Bhagavato Dharma Stirachara Sattva Karambeshu Apritagdhiyo Yam Upasate Tvarya Navyaparachi Navyabhicharati Taveksha Yaya Yabhihito Bhagavato Dharma Stirachara Sattva Karambeshu Apritagdhiyo Yam Upasate Tvaya. Na, not. Vyabhicharati, fails. Tava, your. Iksha, outlook. Yaya, by which. He, indeed. Abhihita, declared. Bhagavata, in relationship with your instructions and activities. Dharmaha, religious principle. Stira, non-moving. Chara, moving. Sattva kadambeshu, among the living entities. Apritakdhiya, who do not consider distinctions. Yam, which upasate, follow, tu, certainly, arya, those who are advanced in civilization. Translation. My dear Lord, one's occupational duty is instructed in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita according to your point of view, which never deviates from the highest goal of life. Those who follow their occupational duties under your supervision, being equal to all living entities, moving and non-moving, and not considering high and low, are called Aryans. Such Aryans worship you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Bhagavad Dharma and Krishna Katha are identical. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted everyone to become a guru and preach the instructions of Krishna everywhere, from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, the Puranas, Vedanta Sutra, and similar Vedic literatures. Aryans who are advanced in civilization follow Bhagavad Dharma. Prahlad Maharaj, although merely a child of 5 years, recommended Kaumara acharet pragyo dharaman bhagavatan iha dulabham manusham janma tarapya dhurvam artadam. Bhagavatam 7.6.1. Prahlad Maharaj preached Bhagavad Dharma among his classmates as soon as an opportunity was afforded in the absence of his teachers from the classroom. He said that from the very beginning of life, from the age of 5, children should be instructed about Bhagavad Dharma, because the human form of life, which is very rarely obtained, is meant for understanding this subject. So here we're establishing, first point is then we're establishing Bhagavad Dharma and Krishna Katha. So that means always speaking about Krishna, thinking about Krishna, doing everything in connection with Krishna. Then that's actually what Bhagavad Dharma is. See, Dharma is the nature of something, right? So you have a nature of something that's not unchangeable. So Bhagavad Dharma means this. It's not a matter of we speculate, we do what we want, we talk how we want, and do everything we want. No, it already has a Dharma, right? Now, we can take another Dharma, you know, like the Yoga Dharma, or the Jnana Dharma, or the Karmakanda Dharma. Point is when we're following the nature of something, right? According to its God-given nature, that's Dharma, right? And if we're going against that nature, that is adharma, right? So whatever there is, it has a natural Dharma that's set by Krishna. He's created it. So that Dharma being followed, then to please Krishna, that is Bhagavad Dharma, right? So whatever one's following, as long as it's to please Krishna, because otherwise, if it's based on I and mine, then it's mixed. We wouldn't say that that's what Bhagavad Dharma is about. Bhagavad Dharma is about pure devotion. So even though we may be in a mixed stage, we're trying to get away from that mixed stage. So we don't focus on the mixed stage. We acknowledge it. We work on it. Right? Just like in cooking, there are dirty pots. The kitchen is dirty. You have to clean. You have to do. But do we focus on that? Right? Could you imagine you go into the kitchen, try to cook, and there's someone there who's only focusing on cleaning? You'll be in his way. In fact, you're making the place dirty. Right? And so in his mind, this is a real, disturbance. Kitchens are supposed to be clean, and this cook is coming in and messing it up. You understand? This is what happens. We have to be very careful to avoid this. So when it talks about Bhagavad Dharma, it means about remembering Krishna and that. It means it's the Dharma that's given by Krishna. That's what Bhagavatam describes. That's what he's saying, described in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. This is Chitraketu. So this is some millions, billions, probably even trillions, quadrillions, maybe even more ago. Right? And so this knowledge has always been there. The Bhagavad Gita personified, the Srimad Bhagavatam personified, always sit in Brahma's court. So they're not just some new book that's come out recently. And they're eternal. So it's not that there's any point in time. Even Kali Yuga can't make them not functional. That's the fun part. That's the great part. Kali Yuga cannot affect spiritual because it's eternal. Right? So here then the Bhagavad Dharma and Krishna Katha, they're what's identical. So by always being absorbed in Krishna Katha, your occupation is designed so you can be absorbed in Krishna Katha. Whatever you're doing, the Brahmins are teaching about Krishna Katha, the Kshatriyas are managing so people can talk about Krishna Katha, Vaishyas are making money so there's facilities so that people can talk about Krishna Katha, Shudras are performing whatever activities that support all that so there can be Krishna Katha. That's what it is. One may say it's simplistic, but spiritual life is pretty straightforward, right? Material life is what's complicated. Okay, now explaining this. Bhagavad Dharma means living according to the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, we find that the Supreme Lord has arranged human society in 4 social divisions, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Again, the Puranas and other Vedic literatures set forth 4 ashrams, which are the divisions of spiritual life. Right? So the Varna Dharma, that is social life or economic life. Right? And the ashrams, that's spiritual. Because you perform your direct spiritual activities in the ashram. And then the Varna Dharma, that's what you do to maintain your ashram Dharma. Right? Does that make sense? For Brahminical, then they're both the same. What occupations they do is supportive. Though, of course, we can see by the example of the Smartas, you can get distracted even by that, because it is a Dharma. So Dharma being secondary aspect, we tend to get distracted and miss the primary, which is Krishna Katha, or Bhagavad Dharma. Right? So Bhagavad Dharma is the primary Dharma. All other Dharmas are secondary in support of. If they're supportive, they're useful. If they're not supporting, they're useless. That doesn't mean we throw them out. That means we make them useful. You cannot accomplish the primary without the secondary. You cannot cook without the pots or without a fire. But the fire is not cooking, the pots aren't cooking, the spoons aren't cooking, your nice countertop is not cooking. Cooking is something else. It's what is accomplished or manifest through these facilities. So the secondary and the primary have to match. Otherwise, if they don't match, you know what I'm saying? Like, you want to go to Calcutta, so you have to get in a vehicle. Now, if you get in a vehicle that's going north to Barhampur, you won't get to Calcutta. Right? It's a secondary aspect. You're trying to get your primary here, going to Calcutta. So, but it doesn't match. So that's why then the Shastra then gives, this is so here, then this is the next point. That's why Varnashram is given, so that we know that we are going in the right direction. Like that. Because Krishna says everyone's following his path, but it's just which direction you're going. Are you going towards Krishna or away from Krishna? Right? There's only 2 directions. Right? The members of human society who strictly follow the principles of Bhagavad Dharma and live according to the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are called Aryans, or Arya. A civilization of Aryans who strictly follow the instructions of the Lord and never deviate from those instructions is perfect. Such civilized men do not discriminate between trees, animals, human beings, and other living entities. Pandita Samardarshina. Because they are completely educated in Krishna consciousness, they see all living entities equally. Right? So everything has its nature, and it's all Krishna's. So therefore, whatever that particular living entity or situation is for, that's how it's used. If it's not your duty to be involved in that, you don't get involved. Right? This idea of getting involved in everything just to keep one's life busy, then you're keeping busy, but where are we going? Right? Traditionally, that's called going around in circles. Right? Because you have to have vyavasayatmaka buddhi, you have to be fixed. Know where is Krishna, what is the process that you're following, how you're going to get there. Right? Then it works very, very nicely. Aryans do not kill even a small plant unnecessarily, not to speak of cutting trees for sense gratification. At the present moment throughout the world, killing is predominant. Men are killing trees, they are killing animals, and they are killing other human beings also, all for sense gratification. And they are killing, This is not an Aryan civilization. As stated here, stira chara sattva kadambeshva pritag dhiya. The word apritagtiya indicates that Aryans do not distinguish between lower and higher grades of life. It's just what one does. Just like when you go into the kitchen, you don't discriminate that, this part of the kitchen's good, this one's bad. No, it's all kitchen. But each part does something different, right? Over where the sink is, that's dirty. You don't go, oh, this is the bad part of the kitchen. No, because of that's where things are clean, therefore you have clean things in the kitchen. Right? You have your favorite pan, but you don't use it for everything. It's used for what it works for. Right? You don't use it for something else. Right? So everything has its nature. You don't discriminate. It's according to what it's for is how you define, not what one likes or other things. That's then a finer detail. You may prefer within the category something, but you can't make up your own categories. If you do, then you're making up your own religion. And if you're making up your own religion, it is guaranteed it will not take you back to Godhead. That's 100% money-back guarantee. It will not get you back to Godhead. So you don't have to worry. If you want to make up your own and you're worried, oh, will I go back to Godhead? I wouldn't want that. Don't worry. You won't. Right? So like that. So rest peacefully, right? So like that, yeah. All life should be protected. All living beings have a right to live, even the trees and plants. This is the basic principle of an Aryan civilization. Right? Apart from the lower living entities, those who have come to the platform of human civilization should be divided into a society of Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. The Brahmins should follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures. The criterion must be guna and karma, right? You have the ability. Nowadays, it's if you have the karma, if you have the karma, then we say, I can do that. But the point is does anybody have the guna? That's the whole thing. Just like, for example, businessmen can run hospitals. They're nice hospitals, all the latest equipment, highest paid doctors and everything like that. So you would say they have the karma. But what about the guna? Why are they doing it? Simply to make money. That's not qualification for medicine. Qualification for medicine is to benefit people so they can do. Prabhupada mentions in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Brahmin who went around and met Lord Chaitanya, and he asked him, can you do my chart? Who was I in my last life? So he does the chart and he goes, you were the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? Right? So Prabhupada mentions that the Brahmins that were there, and everybody could approach and get benefit. So if you had more money, you gave more. You had less, you gave less. Now, unless, you have a ridiculous amount of money or you have a ridiculous amount of insurance, you don't get taken care of. Right? Why is that? It's business. Right? You have the hospital. That's already business. Then you have insurance. That's another business. And if you check, there's probably a connection between them. Right? You understand? It just keeps going. Right? So that's the whole point is that's karma. They can run it, and they generally run quite a good hospital. Right? It's clean, it's nice, it's orderly, and it costs you a lot. That's why it's clean and nice and orderly. Right? But it's a business, so they don't have the guna. So that's the whole thing is people think I can do anything, but where's the guna? Right? Everyone has an opinion, where's the guna? Right? Prabhupada said, you can do it, then you say something. You can't do it, keep your mouth shut. It's someone else's business. Right? So that's the criterion. It must be guna and karma. Prabhupada used the word must here. In other words, one should acquire the qualities of a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and act accordingly. So, therefore, since if we pick a duty, those are the qualities that have to be focused on. Right? These qualities aren't going to come by a separate endeavor. They're going to come through the performance of devotional service. But you have to be aware of them so that when the opportunity comes up, you use them. Does that make sense? That has to happen. Like Brahminical, there must be forgiveness. Right? Kshatriyas may not forgive like that, but Brahmins have to forgive. And the head of society is Brahmins. So therefore, the Brahminical society is a forgiving society. Right? We talk about forgiveness, but where does it come from? It doesn't come from sentiment. That's the nature of a Brahmin. It comes because we don't discriminate between the souls. We discriminate situations, this, that, but we don't discriminate between the souls. Otherwise we say, oh, here, they're bad. That's mode of passion. Because then we're identifying the living entity with the conditioning. It's not that we don't deal with the conditioning according to the conditioning, but we don't connect the living entity to the conditioning. Does that make sense? That's a fine point. We catch that, then we can apply Varnashram. We don't catch that, we cannot apply Varnashram. Because Varnashram is about this balance between Bhagavad Dharma as the primary and Varnashram as the secondary. Right? Then we can do. Just like if you can't catch what's the principles of cooking, it doesn't matter how great a kitchen you have and ingredients, you cannot cook. Right? It's just not possible. This is the civilization accepted by the Aryans. Why do they accept it? They accept it because they are very much eager to satisfy Krishna. This is perfect civilization. So therefore, all these social and spiritual considerations are done because they please Krishna. Not because of I and mind. We bring our I and mind in line with Krishna. If it's about my I and mine, and then I'll add Krishna to that, what's the center? The I and mine. And Krishna's there. So what do you have? You have a budding Krishna conscious Grihamedi. Look at this. Look at the definition. Grihastha means Krishna is in the center, and then the family, the money, everything else goes around Krishna. So it's Krishna pleasing Krishna, but you need money, you need a job, you need this, you need that, but it's all connected to Krishna. But if it's about I and mine, I am who I am, and I have to adjust everything to that, that's Grihamedi. That simple, scary simple. Right? We don't like to talk about it because it's always the Grihamedis are those disgusting, stinky, smelly karmis. But how do you tell the difference these days? Really? How do you tell the difference? They're vegetarian. You know, they get into yoga. They do kirtan at the yoga studio. And Hare Krishna kirtan, not Ganesh kirtan and all that stuff that we do. You know? I'm talking about Hare Krishna kirtan. You know? Just speaking the truth. No? You've been to some of our yoga studios? There, stay away from chanting, oh, they'll know we're Hare Krishnas. Karmis walk right in, sit down, chant Hare Krishna. And we're, oh. And so who's it about? It's about us or it's about the holy name? So where does that come from? That's the point. We have to think. That's the whole point. Thinking is our process. It's called Buddhi Yoga. The yoga of intelligence. We think. Then we think, analyze. Okay, then I should do things for Krishna. How am I doing for Krishna? What am I doing? How am I doing my things for Krishna? What's the authority for doing it? And if I look at it like that, even though I'm not very expert, that's the right attitude. And then it will just develop from there. Krishna will reveal everything. It will all become very clear. Right? It's not that, oh, when we're perfect, then it works. No, that's the beauty of bhakti. Even when we're not perfect, just that we're trying to sincerely please Krishna, that's the perfection. So that means the Bhagavad Dharma is perfect, even though our Varna and Ashram Dharma isn't. Right? You can have someone who has a good mentality of a cook, but is not as expert at cooking. But they'll develop it with time because they have the primary. You know, or they know one set of recipes and they need to cook something else. It may take them some days, some weeks to organize it so it works out. But they know what cooking is. So if we know how to please Krishna, then that is what's going to make everything work. And if we try anything else, we will be frustrated like everybody else is frustrated who tries something else. Aryans do not deviate from the instructions of Krishna, nor do they have doubts about Krishna. But non-Aryans and other demoniac people fail to follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. This is because they have been trained in sense gratification at the cost of all other living entities. So if you look at it, just for fun, look at it demographically. How do you define the first world? Right? You have first world, second world, third. First world is the most expert at sense gratification at the cost of all other living entities. Right? You look at it, that's actually what it is. That's what your superpower means. What are you doing with that superpower? How do you know you're superpowering, right? Because you're using up most of the stuff on the planet. Right? Second world's not as good at it. Third world needs some work. Fifth world, they really got work to do. Right? So this is what Prabhupada's talking about here, is that once trained in sense gratification, because of that, then the difficulty comes up is that it gets in the way of devotional service, because everything I do is at someone else's expense, rather than everything I do is to please Krishna. I have to work with people and all that, but not that I'm manipulating to get done what I want to get done, even if it's for Krishna. It's got to be, this is the duty, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Right? This sense that I am the controller and I'm the enjoyer, that has to go. That's what brought us here in the first place. That's what will keep us here. And what will get us out of here is remembering Krishna. Being comfortable in the community of devotees. Right? Being able to live with other living entities, and that will function nicely. Then we can function in the spiritual world. Right? There are people there also. It's not that it's some mystical thing. Hey, Haribo. Thanks. Okay. Nunam pramata kurute vikarma. Their only business is to indulge in all kinds of forbidden activities for sense gratification. Yadindriya pritaya apnoti. They deviate in this way because they want to gratify their senses. So they're deviating from Krishna consciousness. It means all living entities. If you're in the material world, we've deviated. Now, Krishna is giving us the opportunity how to come back, how to make it the focus Him. Because if we look at just what we're using, then it's nice. It's connected to Krishna, but it's more nice if we look at it what's at Krishna Himself. Because that gives us the long-term goal. Otherwise, we just look at immediate things that we're trying to organize, like that, rather than what is the long-term. Why are we doing those things? Yes, we're going to do short-term, but why? Is it to please Krishna? Right? And if that is, that's progressive. All other things that are deemed progressive are not progressive. Unless you're talking about progressive in the direction away from Krishna. Then you can say, yes, that's progressive. Like that. They have no other occupation or ambition. Their method of civilization is condemned in the previous verse. Kakshemo nija paraya parayo kiyan varta sva para druha dharmena. What is the meaning of a civilization that kills oneself and others? Because killing oneself means one's not recognizing the soul. Killing others means you're not doing the same thing also. So that civilization that recognizes the living entity, recognizes the Lord in the relationship, and then bases all of their activities and values on that, that's Aryan. That's civilized. And the others, then, they need a little work. This verse, therefore, advises that everyone become a member of the Aryan civilization except the instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should conduct his social, political, and religious affairs according to his instructions. So that's what it meant by nothing changes. But what changes? The mentality changes. I'm cooking, so I don't change that I cook, but I change the mentality in which I cook. Right? And if need be, I change some of the secondary aspects of this secondary. Right? Means the primary is devotion to Krishna. I'm using cooking as a secondary method. Now every method, seeing that it's come from Krishna, who is primary and secondary, he is the Shakti and the Shaktiman. Right? Then you're going to have, within the secondary, a secondary. So those things I may need to make some adjustment with. So I might have to adjust what I'm cooking. Right? Does that make sense? So what I'm cooking may not be offerable to Krishna as a person. It may be offerable as He's the Lord and He's giving us, bountiful whatever it is and this and that. Great. But it's not about pleasing him there. It's just about acknowledging that it's, he gave it, which is good. But it's not as good as Bhagavad Dharma, which is then defined so that we understand what the Lord himself as a person wants. Right? We are spreading the Krishna consciousness movement to try to establish a society the way that Krishna wants it. So here we see, as Prabhupada is saying, we try to establish. So how will that be? That would be based on what he does as Acharya, what others do as Acharya, what we see in the Bhagavatam, as Chitraketu mentioned, what's happening in Bhagavatam and Gita. These activities that are there, one may say, well, these are all smriti, right? And those have to be based on Shruti. So what makes smriti? How does in the Vedic tradition they define smriti? I mean, of course, we've heard what's written rather than what's heard, or what's spoken rather than what's heard. But the general term that they use is called tradition. Right? So that which the great personalities, great souls do, their activities, those are taken as authority. That's how then we understand how to apply the secondary aspect and how to apply the primary. Because otherwise we won't know what actually is appropriate for love of God, because we don't have it. Right? Once we have it, then we'll know. Right? So we follow those who do have it. So that's why Prabhupada says we are trying to establish a society the way Krishna wants it. That means according to the sadachar of the great personalities. Not of anybody else. We're not worried about anybody else. Right? Means we deal with everyone appropriately, but that doesn't mean that that becomes us. Does that make sense? It's just like, let's say you're from one country, you go to another country, and they have some different kind of customs. You follow the local customs there, because that's the way you interact. But it doesn't mean it changes your own customs. Anybody who says that, then there's something wrong. Right? So in other words, we have the Bhagavad Dharma, and we function within the society. We work, interact, and everything. But at the same time, the principal aspect of this way Krishna wants it, that we take. So that means the primary thing, what Krishna wants, the secondary that Krishna gives it, applying that secondary how the great personalities have given it to us, and then where we need, make adjustments to a time, place, and circumstance so it fits in. But we don't start from there. We never start from ourself and the time, place, and circumstance. That's always the last consideration. Anyone who starts there will be wrong. Guaranteed. Because it has to start with Krishna and the great personalities. Then, according to what they would do in this situation, I try to apply that myself. And then I make the adjustments according to what needs to be done. But it's not about me or the place. It's about the dharma of how to interact with other living entities according to their nature. That's always been there. This concept of soft preaching has always been there. Just devotees were a little thick-headed, they didn't see it. But so now there's a social reaction that creates this soft preaching. But it's just a knee-jerk. It's just a reaction. It's a social knee-jerk. It's not philosophical. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is moving and preaching to the British. Like that. Srinivasacharya is preaching to the king. Right? They're not Vaishnavas. So everybody's preaching to people. Mrugari the hunter was a great Vaishnav. No, Narad Muni made him that way. You understand? So that's the thing, is that soft preaching's always been there. That means, soft preaching means speaking according to the nature of the person you're talking to with words and examples they can appreciate. That's soft. It doesn't mean that it's not direct, it's not bold. These are other words. Look them up in the dictionary if there's a confusion. Right? Soft does not mean compromise. Soft does not mean weak. Soft means according to the time, place, and circumstance. I take the Shastra, what the Acharyas have given, and then apply it to the time, place, and circumstance, so who I'm talking to, who I'm dealing with, will understand. That's called preaching. You don't have to put this soft, hard, medium hard, kind of soft, kind of hard, hard on the outside, soft on the inside. You don't have to do this. Because once you start, there'll be 1,000,000 of them. Like that. There's preaching. Right? We don't start a new society for someone who does college preaching. Right? We don't have a new society for that. But then someone else is doing secondary school preaching, so that takes a different society altogether, because the high school students are so different from the university students. Then there's the lower secondary, then there's the grade school, like that. And then we do the school on the weekend for the little dinky kids. So right there we already have 5 societies, and that's just kids. Then when you get into adults, and then what about this adult? This is the professional adult, and this adult, and then there's a bohemian adult, and then this intellectual adult who's not really a bohemian, but he is intellectual anyway. And, so all these kind of things. So all these, then you end up with 1,000,000 societies. But ISKCON already has that. The Vedic culture already carries that. It's already there. So that's what Prabhupada says we're trying to establish. So that means it's an endeavor. We do it to please Krishna, because it's up to Krishna. We try. Man proposes, God disposes. We try. This is the meaning of Krishna consciousness, right? To try to please Krishna. We are therefore presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is and kicking out all kinds of mental concoction. So if you want to take Bhagavad Gita as it is and apply mental concoction on it and come up with new things, Prabhupada says here, right here, we are kicking that out. Keep that in mind. So Prabhupada wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is. That's our book. If you can't apply it in preaching to all the different people on the planet, there's something wrong with you. Not with the purports, with your understanding. If you have too much mental concoction, you cannot deal with it. It's simple. We always take it, no, I'm the best, I know everything. But actually, no. Krishna reveals. If he doesn't reveal, you don't know. You can't know Krishna unless he reveals. And you're only going to reveal if you follow the Acharya. If you doubt the Acharya, you will be lost. You will not understand anything. I don't care how smart you are, or how professional you are, or how experienced in the world you are. You will not understand Krishna consciousness. You will not understand the Bhaktivedanta purports. Very simple, very straightforward. Like that. Right? Fools and rascals interpret Bhagavad Gita in their own way. We'll leave that as it is. When Krishna says, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyajimam namaskaru, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. They comment that it is not Krishna to whom we must surrender. Thus they derive imaginary meanings from Bhagavad Gita. The Krishna consciousness movement, however, strictly follows Bhagavad Dharma, the instructions of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, for the complete welfare of human society. One who misinterprets Bhagavad Gita, twisting out some meaning for his sense gratification, is a non-Aryan. Therefore, commentaries on Bhagavad Gita by such persons should be immediately rejected. One should try to follow Bhagavad Gita as it is. In Bhagavad Gita 12:6-7, Lord Krishna says, Yetu sarvane karamani mai sanyasya mat para anyenaiva yogena mam jayanta upasate tesham aham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami na chirat parta mayadveshita chetasam. For one who worships me, giving up all his activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service and always meditating on me, and who has fixed his mind upon me, O son of Prita, for him I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Right, so Prabhupada is then concluding again with his opening, is that this Krishna Katha, always remembering Krishna, never forgetting him, and then preaching Bhagavad Dharma, they're the same thing. So any devotee, anywhere, in any situation can do it. That's the beauty. That's the point. Bhagavad Dharma is universal. All the other dharmas are not. Right? So that's why then the Varnashram is given as the perfect system that can accommodate all variety of different mentalities. All varieties of different mentalities. No other social system can do it. You see, all the modern systems favor one group over another, but the Vedic system can accommodate them all. You don't have one that's good for the intellectuals and good for everybody else. It's good for them, or it's good for the government, it's good for the businessmen, it's good for the common people. You don't have one that's good for everybody. Only the Veda can do that. So that's why, even though it's mundane, even though it's secondary, it's the best. Right? But one has to understand and apply. But the point is not about that. The point is that whatever you're doing, the reason you're doing it, the point is the reason we mention Varnashram is not because you're supposed to do Varnashram. We mention it because that's what Krishna wants. That's the reason we do it. If Krishna wanted something else, if he wanted us all to live in a barrel in Greece somewhere, then that's what we'd be doing. Right? So it's about the reason for doing things. You don't go backwards, you have to go forward to find the answer. The answer is always in Krishna. And his instructions, the instructions and example of the acharyas. Then we bring it down. Okay, what are they trying to tell us? How do I apply that here? And if we do that, then it's so simple, and Krishna is very pleased. Right? It's not about expertise. It's about trying to sincerely please Krishna. Like that. Any questions or comments? Yes.
It's a contradiction about trying to apply according to circumstances and trying to practice according to what the Vedas say.
No, but what are the Vedas saying? Right? So this is the whole point, is that the Vedas are saying about the primary. See, primary can always be done. Let's say the principles of cooking I can apply anywhere on the planet in any situation. Right? If I have two stones and something to burn, and then I can cook. Up to I have a kitchen in a 3-star restaurant, right? The principle of cooking can be applied. This is what we mean. It's about the principle that has to be obtained. You have to obtain the principle. The principle then requires a secondary medium to manifest it. It's independent, but if you want to see it and take part, you have to do something that manifests it. So that's where then you have to think and see, okay, how does it apply into this situation? Does that make sense? So we're not used to thinking like this. This is why it's a new thing. We're used to thinking in secondary terms. So we think the Vedas say, do this like this, but it is saying things to do that those are what are the nicest ways to obtain. Does that make sense? Just like if, let's say, these Vedic recipes, they attain food in the mode of goodness more easily than other techniques. That's why it's used. But if the main thing is you understand the techniques of cooking. Most people know recipes. That's why it seems contradictory. But if you know cooking, then there's no contradiction in any recipe. Does that make sense?
Says that she tries to behave in this way, but she cannot accomplish, or she cannot accomplish that all her family may not eat meat, she says.
No, but the point is when it comes to, means her point is she's trying to be Krishna conscious, right? So she can not eat meat, right? Now, within the family, the reason she's part of a family is not due to Krishna consciousness. She's part of a family because of the mundane connection. So what are the duties in the mundane connection? Right? To see that everybody eats. Right? So then they're eating, and so that goes on. You know, whether you take part in it or not, but you know, you see that they're healthy in that. That's the difficulties that we run into. You understand? So the point is that mother means taking care, nourishing. So therefore, if you can't have an influence, let's say, on what they eat, but you can in how they behave. You know, in the family, in the house, they behave nice, they talk nice to each other, they don't yell and scream, they don't curse, they don't, you know, aren't nasty to each other. You can say that strongly and they can't complain. Right? But what they're going to eat or not, you know, once they've crossed a certain age, it's kind of like harder to deal with. Does that make sense? So in other words, you're gaining the primary, but the secondary, you get it as close as possible. So where you can make it ideal, you do. Where you can't, you just go back to the primary and make sure that you're doing that. And then whatever you can do to do that. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's what we're saying. The Vedic can accommodate that. Right? Yes.
My question is, where do you draw the line between trying to avoid making interpretations to the scripture, to authority, but also at the same time trying to intentionally see something from time, place, and circumstances to preach, or even to understand yourself what's going on in the scripture?
Right. Because you're starting from the scripture. See, the difficulty is when we start from ourselves and then look for things in scripture that match it. You know what I'm saying? But that's incomplete philosophy. It means it's not that it's not done, but that's done by Gautama in Nyaya philosophy, by Sheshika in the atomic theory, the Shankya, you know, the atheistic Shankya, and Patanjali Yoga. Those four, they have their philosophy. It's based on the Veda, but they only choose those verses that support what they do. They don't deal with any verses outside of that. Right? But then you see when you're dealing with Mimamsa, then either Purva or Uttara, then they can take any verse and they can say its meaning according to the philosophy. You understand? So that's the advantage. So we're given Vedanta. That means we can understand any verse. It just takes practice and looking at it. Right? So just like here, the Nyaya, Prabhupada used that in this verse. He started with Bhagavad Dharma, then he explained what Bhagavad Dharma meant. Right? Then he started giving examples. Then he's giving the, you know, how you say, this verse therefore advises. Right? So he's bringing it back. He's synthesizing it. Right? And then he's then concluding with, one who worships me gives up everything for me. That's a devotee. So he's used the system of Nyaya perfectly. Devotees tend to think, oh, he just kind of writes it simple and all that. His writing is so scholarly beyond that scholars can't understand its scholarliness. So if anybody thinks it's simple stuff and we got to do something higher, they do not know what they're talking about. And hopefully they're not a disciple of Prabhupada. Okay? Yes? How can you change your mentality?
Yeah, like how can you change your mentality in a way that everything you do, you want to do it in service to Krishna?
Okay. How to change everything so it connects everything you do to Krishna? Well, there's two things. One is associate with those who, according to your understanding, you find and others that are doing that, or at least they're doing it better than you. They don't have to be perfect in the way that they're doing everything. Just if they're doing more than you, you can learn from them, right? You know, just like if you're learning something, you know 10%, but they know 20%, you can learn from them. You know, don't worry about the other 80% and say, oh, there's a fault, but they know 10% that you don't, right? Catch that part. So in other words, look at devotees that who does something in areas that you value. And also, the point is where do you work? your attempts are made in the areas of your own values. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't start with your value, but that's the field you work with. Let's say, for example, someone's value is money. So then within the sphere of money, that's where their occupation will be. That's how they're going to try to look at Krishna in the indirect way. How to their business, how their use of money, how their family members deal with money, their mentality towards money. You know, all that. Does that make sense? Means that's your field. So whatever it is that you value and think about, those are the areas that you have to be Krishna conscious in. Don't worry about being Krishna conscious in an area that you don't think about, unless it's one you're supposed to think about. You know what I'm saying?
And how can
Yeah, does it work?
How can I, you know, I'm a student, I study.
Right.
How can I, you know, connect it to Krishna? Because, you know, with the stress of school and exams and studying,
Right.
so I feel like overwhelmed with all this.
Yes.
And I don't know how to like see it as
balance
service
it.
for Krishna, because I see it as my duty. Like I study, I'm a student.
But yes, so there's your duty, but how is it your duty? In other words, keep taking it back. In other words, it's your duty, don't stop there. So why is it your duty?
Because
this is the second point. One is associate with those that are more advanced. Two is think, contemplate.
like think in what way, to think like what the reason, why am I doing
Yes,
this?
yes. In other words, if your duty is to study, and you've chosen a particular form of study, right? You're staying here in Mayapur?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you'll have chosen some form of study, right? And so what will be that form being a secondary aspect, it'll give some result.
Yeah.
So that result, how will that now be connected to Krishna, right? So then that will give you some kind of degree, some kind of skill, some kind of knowledge. Then how you'll use that for Krishna, right?
Yeah.
You understand? So you have to keep taking it back, so that will give, okay, let's say, just for example, that will get you a particular kind of job that you want, okay? So then, but why do you want a job? Who said you should have a job, right? That's also part of duty, right? Because people have jobs if they want to have families and do all that. If you don't need families and that, you don't need a job, right? So then that would mean you have to maintain the family. Because you say it's my family, then you have to be part of the process of maintaining. If you say they're all Krishnas, you don't have to be part, but then you wouldn't be part of the family in the first place. You'd be a living entity, they'd be a living entity, and you wouldn't be connected in that way as family. You understand? So Krishna's taking care of everybody, but since we identify with it, then we have to take part as an instrument in Krishna's taking care. So that's what you'll do as a job that'll make the money to take care of the house. But that doesn't end there. Then you have to use the money nicely. You have to see that everyone in the family is using it nicely. You yourself have to value it nicely. You want money, you have to respect it. Like this. Can you deal badly with any lady or girl and get a good result?
What do you mean?
Means, let's say there's a girl. I deal badly with her. Can I get any good result from interacting with her?
I don't think so.
No, okay. So remember, money is Lakshmi, who's female. You deal with her badly, she goes away. Right? So it's not just I have the skill, I have the job, I know everything. There's millions of people who have the skill and do not have jobs because they don't respect Lakshmi. Maybe they do now because they don't have it, but in previous lifetimes they didn't, and that's why now they don't have. Does that make sense? Yeah. So remember, the secondary is female. And you connect it to Krishna, female is happy. Females like to be connected to the masculine, right? Don't connect, try to take them off, do with them as you like, they get upset. Things don't go right. So when we're talking about this time, place, and circumstance, it's extremely practical and direct. It's just Krishna and his energies, Krishna and his creation. The creation is real, is personal, it's alive. You deal with it nice, it responds nice. You don't, it doesn't. So if you're trying to do, even if, let's say, all these we've gone through this and that one. Okay, now the money's there. Now, why do you want to maintain the family? What's the point? You had food, you have clothes, you have health, you have a place to stay. Why?
Because it's my duty.
Sorry? It's your duty, yes. But what is your duty? Can you sit down and chant, go to the temple, and be always engaged, enthusiastic in Krishna service if you're starving, hungry, you have no clothes, no place to stay, you haven't slept properly, and the dogs are every time you find a place to stay they kick you out because that's their spot. Right? No. Yeah? You understand? So that's why then the Grihastha creates a stable environment in which then the material facilities then support them being Krishna conscious. But now, having done all that, then you have to be Krishna conscious. You understand? So since that's the end of the whole equation, don't lose your involvement in Krishna consciousness in the process of getting there. Right? In other words, look at it that I have to study, and it takes a lot. And there's homework, there's this, there's that, and there's so many things. And not only that, it's not just you walk in, sit down, and study. There's all the social thing and what you wear and who you hang out with and what you eat and what you do, and all that kind of jazz. You just have to accept that that's part of it. That's just the way it is. And once you accept it, then even though it's annoying, it's less annoying. Okay? And then you have to say, because you're following that kind of educational program, you need to be able to relax from that. So you have to figure out what you can do that relax, that actually makes you refreshed for the next day, but doesn't take you away from either the study or away from your Krishna consciousness. And you have to work that in, because now it's the study will be replaced by a job. You ever notice that school is 9 to 5 and the job is 9 to 5? Right? Or school is 9 to 3 and you got 2 hours to play, because, like that. But when you get bigger, they don't give you that like that. So the kids got it good, right? You understand? It's designed like that, right? Otherwise, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it just replaces. So you figure it out now, it'll do good for you your whole life. So in other words, you have a job, and that job now means you're a student. So your occupation is a student. Then you have to be what it takes. So some occupations need less to recover from. Some need more. So you have to find where do you fit that you can balance it.
There's also thinking.
Thinking, yes. And then look around for others who you see are working. It's not that they have to be perfect in everything. Someone gets their homework done. Someone sits and learns in class. Someone doesn't care what everybody else thinks about them. Learn from them all these different things. Someone gets their sadhana in. Learn those things from those individuals. You understand? And then think about it, how it applies to you. That's the final point.
Will Krishna wait for me?
Krishna's been waiting all this time. Yeah, he's sitting in your heart. It's like this. Let's say, there are situations that you could be in that you could conceivably think my mother would not want to be here, right? But Paramatma's still there. So he loves you even more than your mom. And not only that, your mom's here this life. It means every life there's a mom, but it's not the same one. But he's the same one in every life. Right? So he's just waiting. He's just thinking, this life, maybe this life they'll become Krishna conscious, they'll turn their face towards me. And if not, then okay, then next time. Maybe, he's always waiting,
He never gets tired?
He never gets tired. Don't worry. He's not like us. He's not going to, you're not going to step out of your house and this lightning bolt will come out of nowhere and hit you and you'll turn into this little pile of ash. And then the girl next to you go, wow. and then start, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, right? Yeah, so it's not gonna happen like that. You understand? Krishna's always there. Anytime you can't figure it out, just sit down and start talking to him. And he'll give you the brains. And when the brains come, know that it comes from him. You use them, but they came from him. So others will give you the credit, you give Krishna the credit. Does that make sense? Okay? That work? Okay. So, yes.
Maharaj, the Prabhupada usually uses the word Aryans for civilized
Yes.
people, and then he goes more deep into Bhagavad Dharma.
Right.
We had a discussion with a few devotees, and can we strictly say that those who are like Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, or Yoga Kanda, Yoga Dharma? Yeah, thank you. Are like in principal classrooms of these Aryans, or
Yes.
are they not Aryans?
No, they're Aryans. If you're not following Vedic culture, then you're not Aryan. If you're following the Vedic culture, you're Aryan. Even whether you're a karmi, jnani, or a yogi, it doesn't matter. But the highest form of Aryan is Bhakti. Does that make sense? Like that. Because you become, in other words, Aryan is civilized. Civilized means human. So you become human when you follow the Vedic culture. Right? But because sometimes all the things aren't available in their ideal form, you get as close as possible. Like, let's say like, when we came to India in the 70s, even up to recently, probably into the 90s, you could get pure oils, really good oils, and not expensive. Everything that was considered nowadays a luxury was standard stuff because people were Aryans. They used them. And so the idea is that, you shouldn't smell bad. Better you smell a little better than bad, right? So you take a bath, X amount of times a day, and you make yourself smell a little better. Right? So now if you can't get the pure stuff, you get something that at least is nice. You know what I'm saying? But the principle remains. Not that, oh, hey, when I was a kid, we all, stunk, we smelled good, we're not talking, how you say, fish named Wanda here. We're talking, that there's principles. People appreciate when people don't smell bad. Right? So therefore you accomplish it by what methods is necessary. Though there are tradition, you use the fit curry, it kills all the bacteria, it's a natural thing, you can get it, you get a rock this big, it costs you a couple of rupees, I don't know, 10 rupees, 20 rupees, maybe 50 rupees. You buy a piece about that big, in the West it'll cost you about 6 pounds, like that. But it's easy, it's cheap, it's available. You use that, you take a bath, you wash, you use that, and then if you put something that improve the smell, like that. So it's done, right? Because that's just part of what the Shastras say. We're thinking, oh, this is a Western thing, all the deodorant. No, it's been Vedic for a lot longer than Western was around. When the Greeks and the Romans and everybody else were not taking baths, the Vedic culture was. Right? Like that. Yeah. Like that. Is that okay? Yeah, okay. So we'll stop here a little over time. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Jainatai Gaura Premanandi.